I was forced to make a choice between honor and survival, and the consequences were unpredictable. The end of this story will leave you breathless. Listen carefully. There was a time not long ago when I could set my watch to the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. Emily used to be home by 5 on the dot, hair up, blazer draped over her arm, asking if the kids had eaten yet. We had a quiet rhythm back then, one that didn't need effort or discussion. It just existed. It worked. But that pattern began slipping about a year ago when she started blaming late hours on a new launch project at work. She said it so casually that I didn't question it at first. But soon those late returns weren't once or twice a week. They were daily, and they weren't 6 or 6:30 anymore. They were past 8, sometimes 9. She'd walk in without apology, sometimes already on her phone, brushing past me with a tight smile that said, "Don't ask." I told myself not to push it. People get busy, work gets tough, marriage means patience. But the pit in my gut started forming right then. Small at first, a whisper I chose to ignore, until the night she came home from what she claimed was a company party. I was on the couch with the kids half asleep beside me when she walked in. Heels in hand, hair curled tighter than usual, makeup untouched by time or sweat. She wasn't tired. She looked proud. She placed a glossy Newport Beach resort brochure and a chilled bottle of champagne on the kitchen island, like a prize display. "Won it at the raffle," she said with a grin. I raised a brow but didn't press. I even said something stupid like, "Guess we needed a vacation anyway." She laughed once, then disappeared upstairs. That should have been the moment I stopped trusting her, but I didn't. I chalked it up to stress, to weird office culture, anything except what it really was. A few days later, I was tossing laundry into the basket when she pulled a sleek cologne bottle from a shopping bag. "Oh," she said too quickly. "This came with the gift set from work. I thought it was perfume, but I grabbed the men's version." She said it like it meant nothing, like I wouldn't notice how expensive it was, or that I'd never worn cologne in my life. I took it from her hand and nodded, pretending the scent didn't hit me like a warning siren. That was when the pit in my gut began to grow into something heavier, something colder. I started paying attention in ways I never had before. Her phone was always face down. The password had changed. She took longer showers and left the water running even after stepping out. When I asked how her day had gone, her answer was always vague, always safe. "Busy," she'd say, or "Nothing new." And she'd smile like a stranger trying to keep the mood light. Then came the weekend I took our daughter out of town for her swim meet. Emily said she had too much work to tag along, and I didn't argue. But when we came back late Sunday night, I noticed something that made the air in my lungs feel sharp. A business card was sitting alone on the kitchen counter. A mechanic shop in Arizona, stamped in bold blue lettering. I would have dismissed it, except for the lipstick. A faint smear of red near the edge, like someone had pressed their mouth there while laughing or whispering something they shouldn't. The thing was, our car didn't need work. It was brand new, barely a year old. There was no reason to visit a mechanic, and certainly not out of state. The next morning, when she left early for work, I slipped into the garage and sat in the driver's seat. I pulled up the GPS history and scrolled through the logs. There were 2 entries that didn't belong. Same address, a cheap motel just outside town. Both trips matched nights she said she was working late. I sat there in the silence of our driveway for what felt like forever, staring at the screen. My hands didn't shake. My jaw didn't clench. I just froze. Because in that moment, I realized I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overthinking. Something was happening, and it wasn't small. That same week, I caught her signing for a delivery, a nondescript brown box, then slipping it into the bedroom closet like she didn't want it seen. That night, I waited until she was asleep. Her breathing slowed. Her phone was face down, as always. I moved quietly to the closet and found the box tucked behind a stack of unused sweaters. Inside was a men's chain, thick, silver, polished, not mine. Beneath it, a folded note on plain paper. 4 words written in dark pen. "For you, champ." I stared at the handwriting, at the stupid nickname, at the smooth metal chain that still held warmth from wherever it had last been worn. And I felt something hollow open inside my chest. I put it all back exactly the way I found it, careful not to leave a trace. Then I slid under the covers beside her and stared at the ceiling while she slept. I didn't sleep a second. By the next weekend, I couldn't focus on anything without my mind drifting back to that box. The note, the smell of that cologne. I went through the motions at work, nodded during meetings, even smiled when I had to. But behind every nod was a crawling suspicion that something was happening right under my roof. I kept it all inside, didn't say a word to anyone. I told myself I needed more than guesses. I needed something undeniable, something that wouldn't let her twist it into coincidence or confusion, something I could look at and not doubt what it meant. So when Emily said she was staying behind to catch up on spreadsheets while I took our daughter to another swim meet that Saturday, I said nothing. Just grabbed the bags, kissed my daughter's forehead, and drove off like everything was fine. But I only stayed the night. I woke up early the next morning, gave an excuse about a work issue, and drove back without warning. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just walked into my house hoping to God I was wrong. The place was quiet, too quiet. The bedroom door was closed, the blinds drawn. It didn't look like anyone had touched the kitchen since we left. I scanned the counter, looking for something, anything, and that's when I saw it. A business card. Another one. Different name, different number, same lipstick stain. But this time, it was worse. It wasn't even from this state. I picked it up slowly, feeling the weight of it, the stickiness of déjà vu. A mechanic again, somewhere in Arizona, not close, hours away, and yet somehow it had found its way into my kitchen like a damn calling card. I didn't hear a car in the driveway, no doors opening or closing, just the buzz of the fridge and my own heart kicking faster with every second. I went to the garage again, opened the door to her SUV, and pulled up the GPS history, just like before. 3 new entries at that same motel. 3. It didn't make sense. It did, but I didn't want it to. One of the stops was only 2 days ago. She said she had a team dinner that night. Even showed me a blurry group pic from the office patio. I should have known. I should have seen the details she didn't bother to fake. Different clothes, shadows not matching, her smile pulled tight like a mask. I backed away from the car and shut the door quietly. I didn't want to think. I just needed to know. That night, after she fell asleep, I went back into the closet. Same spot, same old sweaters. But this time, the box was gone. I froze, heart pounding in my ears. I didn't move for a minute, maybe more. Then I started looking around, under the bed, in her drawers, in the bathroom cabinet, and I found it, stuffed inside her gym bag beneath an old hoodie. The same box, but this time it was empty. The chain was gone. The note too. All that remained was the faint scent of her perfume, or maybe his cologne, soaked into the cardboard like it had absorbed something I wasn't meant to smell. The next morning at work, I completely lost it. Forgot half the slides in a major presentation, stood in front of a room full of clients with my mouth open like a rookie. One of my coworkers, Alan, from marketing, patted my shoulder and asked if I was all right. I told him I was fine, didn't even look him in the eye, just grabbed my jacket and left the building. I sat in the parking lot for an hour with my forehead pressed to the steering wheel, gripping the leather like it could hold me together. My hands were shaking. My breath was shallow. I didn't know if I wanted to scream or drive until I ran out of gas. That night, I walked in to find Emily lounging on the couch, laughing into her phone, tapping a voice message with her thumb, like she didn't have a care in the world. She didn't even hear me come in. I stood there, frozen, watching the way her eyes lit up at the screen. She didn't smile at me like that anymore. I didn't say a word. I just walked past her and into the bathroom. The mirror was fogged from her shower earlier. I wiped it clean and stared at myself. My eyes were bloodshot. My jaw was tight. I didn't look like me anymore. Then I picked up my shaving cream can and slammed it into the glass. The sound was sharper than I expected. Pieces rained down into the sink. I didn't feel the cut until I saw the blood dripping down my palm. It didn't hurt. It just burned. In a strange way, it felt like the first honest thing I'd experienced in weeks. Emily didn't say a word. She didn't come in. She didn't ask what happened. I wrapped my hand, wiped the sink, and stared at the spiderweb remains of my reflection. That was the line. That was where something inside me stopped trying to fix things. The next morning I called my brother. He picked up fast, like always. I hadn't told him anything yet. Not about Emily, not about the motel, not about the chain, but he didn't ask questions. I just said, I have a plan, and I need you. He didn't hesitate. Tell me where to meet you. My brother didn't ask why. Not when I called him sounding like I'd swallowed broken glass. He showed up within the hour, toolbox in hand, like he already knew what I needed. Former Marine, never rattled. While I fumbled through questions in my head, he was already pulling open the side panel under Emily's dashboard and slipping in a listening device no bigger than a thumb drive. He synced it to my phone, tested the signal, and looked up. It's live, he said. That was it. No pep talk, no advice, just the next step in the kind of plan you don't write down. The first few days there was nothing. Music, some office chatter, the sound of her sipping coffee. But I waited. I kept the app open, just in case. Then 4 days in, she made the call. Her voice dropped low, soft, and then I heard the name. Rick. I froze. She was laughing. Just 1 more month, she said. Then I'm free. Free. The word hit me harder than I expected. Not done, not separated. Free. Like I was the prison, like the life we built was the sentence. Then she asked if he was still at the motel. Said she'd bring the good bottle next time. My chest went tight. I just sat there, phone to my ear, car engine off, staring at nothing while the world kept moving outside my window. Rick. That name burned through my brain until it finally landed. Rick Calden, the self-defense instructor she once recommended. The guy she practically begged me to train with after our neighbor got mugged. I remembered the flyer on the fridge. The black shirt, crossed arms, that smug face. She introduced him to me. That night I told my brother everything. We rented a small house 2 blocks from the motel that had popped up on her GPS logs. Cheap place. Peeling paint, sagging porch, but it gave us a perfect line of sight. He handled the cameras, motion activated, low profile, rigged straight to my phone. I just sat inside and waited, chewing through every memory I had with her like I was sifting through a box of lies. And then it happened. Her car pulled into the lot on a Tuesday afternoon. She got out in jeans and sunglasses, looking like she was headed to Target, but Rick was already outside waiting. They didn't talk first. Didn't hesitate. He kissed her like they did this every week, which maybe they did. She laughed, leaned into him, let his hands slide around her like they belonged there. They went inside. 2 hours later, they came out holding hands. She looked lighter, happier, like the weight she carried at home didn't exist when she was with him. Then she pulled something from her purse, the same box I'd found in our closet, and handed it to him. He opened it, pulled out the chain, and put it on right there in the parking lot. I filmed every second, and I didn't feel anger, not the way I expected. I just felt cold, empty, like the last piece of whatever we'd built had finally shattered. I drove home that night like nothing happened. Walked through the door. She was cooking pasta, humming under her breath. Smiled at me. I smiled back, a perfect mirror. Because now I didn't need to wonder. Now I knew. After watching Emily hand Rick that chain, I thought I'd seen the worst of it. I thought the motel footage was the bottom. But I was wrong. The physical betrayal was just the surface. The part that bled, but could eventually scab over. What I found next went deeper. It cut into things I didn't even know she had touched. I didn't sleep much after I got that video. I just kept replaying it in my head. Her smile, his hands, the way she looked over her shoulder, like she was making sure no one was watching. But I was. I saw everything. And the more I saw, the more I wondered what else she'd been hiding. That's when I started digging. I pulled out a file I hadn't opened in months. The paperwork for a small land plot I bought 2 years ago. It was nothing fancy, just a little stretch of green out past the hills, something I wanted to leave for my parents to build on someday. I bought it in my name, cash, right after the first stimulus check gave us a little breathing room. At the time, Emily barely blinked when I told her about it, said she thought it was a sweet idea. So why, when I ran the property search again, did her name come up on the deed? I stared at the screen, not believing it at first. Her name was listed as primary owner, not co-owner. Owner. Like I never existed in the deal at all. I called the county office, played it calm, asked about the title switch. The clerk looked up the records and paused. Looks like there was a quitclaim deed filed last year, she said. Signed by you, giving her full ownership. I never signed anything. My stomach dropped. I asked her to send the documents. She did. When I opened the file, I saw my signature. My name, perfectly forged, and next to it, a prenup that didn't exist. One that claimed all property defaults to her in the event of divorce. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. That night, I printed the motel footage, the deed copy, and the forged prenup. Put everything in a folder. Then I made a call, not to Emily, to her parents. Told them I wanted to have dinner. Said I had something important to share. We met at our place on a Sunday. She cooked like she always did, acting like nothing in the world was off. Her dad brought wine. Her mom laughed at something on TV. We sat around the table, candles lit, food steaming, and I raised my glass. To honesty, I said. Then I slid the folder across the table. Her father opened it. I watched his eyes go dead quiet. Her mom gasped before she even finished reading. When they hit the motel photos, she pressed a hand to her chest and leaned back in the chair, like the air had been sucked out of the room. Emily didn't speak. Her face flushed, jaw tight. She reached for the folder, but her dad stood up and walked out without a word. Her mom stayed frozen, blinking hard. Emily stared at me like I'd stabbed her. But she didn't deny a thing. She didn't have to. The silence said everything. After that dinner, Emily didn't try to explain. No apologies. No excuses. She just moved through the house like she was made of stone, her eyes empty, her lips sealed tight. The weight in the air between us wasn't grief. It was tension. She knew I knew. And I knew she was waiting to see what I'd do next. But I wasn't rushing. I already had what I needed. Now it was about how and where to strike. I met with my lawyer the next morning and handed him the whole story in a folder. Motel surveillance, forged deed records, a copy of the fake prenup, plus audio from the bug in her car. He didn't even blink, just flipped through page after page like a surgeon examining x-rays. When he saw the signature she faked on the land deed, he leaned back. This isn't just infidelity, he said. It's fraud, theft. She'll lose everything. He asked if I wanted to press charges. Not yet. I told him I had something else in mind first. Something public. That afternoon, I opened up the video editing software on my laptop and cut together a clip, about a minute long. It showed Emily and Rick arriving at the motel. No faces blurred, no words spoken. Just her car pulling in, her getting out, him meeting her, the kiss, the walk into the room. Plain truth. No commentary, no hate, just facts. Then I uploaded it. Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, tagged the gym. The caption was simple. Caught my wife cheating with our self-defense coach. For those wondering why I've been quiet. I closed the laptop and waited. Within a few hours, the video hit a few thousand views. Then it snowballed. Comments poured in. Friends, co-workers, strangers, people tagging each other. A few women chimed in, saying Rick had always been a little too hands-on at the gym. The next morning, the gym released a cold, clipped statement. Rick Calden is no longer associated with our facility. We take our members' trust seriously. Just like that, he was fired. Emily found out before noon. She came home like a storm. I heard the car screech into the driveway. Then the front door flew open, and she charged inside like something had snapped. She didn't speak at first, just grabbed my guitar, the one my dad gave me in college, and swung it into the edge of the dining table. Wood cracked loud, strings tore like wires snapping under pressure. Then she stormed to the bookshelf and pulled down the photo album. Wedding, vacations, birthdays, holidays. She opened the fireplace, shoved the album in, and lit it with a match. It caught fast. Flames climbed up the pages like they'd been waiting. Pictures curled. Our smiles turned black at the edges and crumbled into ash. She stood there, breathing heavy, and then turned to me. Her face twisted into something between rage and desperation. "You ruined my life," she said. "You think you're the victim? You think you're some fucking hero?" She ripped the wedding ring off her finger and hurled it across the room. It bounced off the hardwood, spun once, and disappeared under the couch. I didn't move, just held my phone, camera already rolling. She saw it, and that was when her voice cracked. She stopped yelling. Her face went pale. She backed up like the room was caving in, then turned and ran out the door. I uploaded the footage to a secure drive, sent it to my lawyer. 3 days later, we were back in court. The judge didn't waste time. My attorney laid everything out: the affair, the forged deed, the false prenup, the destruction of property, the violent outburst. When he played the video of her burning our photos and screaming in front of the kids' framed school pictures, even her own lawyer looked uncomfortable. The custody ruling was immediate. I got full physical custody. She lost all visitation for the time being. Supervised contact, if any, to be reviewed later. The judge called her actions unstable and manipulative. I didn't smile when the ruling was read. I didn't look at her. I just gathered the papers, thanked my attorney, and walked out into the sunlight. When I picked up our daughter from school that afternoon, she smiled when she saw me. Not forced, real. She hugged me tight, her arms around my waist like she didn't want to let go. At home that night, Emily's things were still scattered through the closet, untouched. But the bed felt different, lighter, like the weight she carried had finally started to lift and shift right back onto her shoulders where it belonged. The silence that followed the custody hearing wasn't peaceful. It was sharp. Emily vanished for days after the court ruling. No calls, no texts, nothing. Her car didn't show up at the gym, and her parents stopped reaching out too. I wasn't sure where she went, but I didn't care. She was out of the house, the kids were safe, and for the first time in months, the air didn't feel poisoned every time I walked through the door. But it wasn't over. I knew it. The kind of person who forges signatures and sets fire to photo albums doesn't just disappear quietly. She had lost her job, her boyfriend, her grip on the family, and someone like her doesn't accept that kind of loss. Not without making someone else bleed for it. It happened on a Thursday. I was halfway through lunch with my brother at a diner when I got the call from the school. The secretary's voice was tight, panicked, trying not to cause alarm, but I knew something was wrong before she finished her sentence. "Emily showed up at dismissal. She tried to take your daughter." I was already moving before she said the rest. She hadn't gotten far. A staff member recognized her, saw the court order on file, and blocked the door. My daughter had backed away and hidden behind her teacher. Security called the police. Emily left before they arrived, speeding off in the same silver crossover that used to pull into our driveway at 5:10 p.m. every day. I drove straight to the school and walked into the front office expecting chaos. But my daughter was calm. Quiet, yes, but calm. She sat beside the counselor, coloring. When she saw me, she stood up and wrapped her arms around my waist without saying anything. I held her tighter than I ever had. Her voice was small when she finally whispered, "I didn't want to go." I reported the incident to my lawyer. He called the court the next morning and pushed for a no-contact order. The judge didn't hesitate. It was granted before noon. Emily was officially barred from coming within 100 yards of the school, our home, or the kids. But that didn't stop her from trying to make noise another way. The next morning, I got a notification from a shared cloud account we hadn't touched in years. Emily had posted photos, old ones, from vacations, birthday parties, everything that made us look like a perfect family, and she captioned them with lies. "He took everything from me. I'm still their mother. I'll never stop fighting for them." Comments poured in, a mix of sympathy and outrage. People who didn't know the full story tried to defend her. Others brought up the motel footage. The post became a war zone. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent the screenshots to my attorney. He filed them under harassment. I blocked her on every platform, changed my number, locked down every account she once had access to. If she wanted to scream into the void, she'd have to do it alone. That weekend, I took the kids on a road trip. Just a few days up in the mountains. Fresh air, no screens, stars they could actually see. We pitched a tent under the trees, cooked hot dogs over a fire, and for the first time in forever, they laughed without checking if Emily was in the room. Ashley met us there the next morning. She'd been a quiet support through everything. A friend who became more once the damage was already done. She didn't ask for space in our lives. She earned it. And now, as the kids ran up the hill, chasing the dog we rescued last month, she stood next to me, sipping coffee from a tin mug, watching them like they were hers too. Later that night, when the kids were asleep and the fire was dying low, I checked my phone. Emily had been fired. Someone in the comments had posted about it, how her past behavior made clients uncomfortable, how the gym dropped her the second the video spread. Another person said she'd been seen moving out of town, car packed, face drawn, no new address, no new job. I stared at the screen for a moment, then shut it off. The night was quiet, stars above, wind in the trees, my daughter breathing steady on the other side of the tent. Emily had lost everything she'd tried to build on lies, and for the first time in months, I wasn't angry. I was done looking back. Weeks passed. The world got quieter, not silent, just easier to breathe in. Emily didn't show up at the school again. No messages, no calls, no late-night drive-bys. It was like she'd been swallowed whole by the chaos she created. Part of me thought she might come back swinging, but the rest of me knew she wouldn't. Not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't. The wreckage she left behind was too big to climb out of. I heard little things here and there. A friend of a friend saw her apartment cleared out, her name removed from the lease. She shut down her social accounts. One day someone forwarded me a photo she posted before deactivating everything. Just a blurry sunset with a caption that read, "Sometimes you have to disappear to find yourself." I didn't reply. I didn't feel anything when I saw it. No anger, no guilt, no curiosity. Just space, clean and quiet. Then came the last crack. One Thursday afternoon, I got a call from the school again. This time it wasn't panic. It was a heads up. Emily had tried to pick up our daughter, but not from the gate or the car line. She waited near the bike racks, hoping no one would see her. She called out when our daughter walked by, but the moment the girl saw her, she turned and ran the other direction. Didn't speak, didn't cry, just ran to her teacher and didn't let go. They called the police, but Emily was gone before they arrived. I watched the security footage later. It was all there. Emily leaning down, arms out like she expected a hug. Our daughter looking straight through her like she was a stranger, then turning away without a word. That was the moment I knew I'd won. Not by force, not by revenge, but by letting truth do the damage. No custody ruling could hit harder than your own child choosing to run from you. My lawyer filed for full termination of parental rights. It would take time, but the evidence was stacked too high for any court to ignore. Meanwhile, I stayed focused on what mattered. I rebuilt from the inside out, fixed the backyard deck with my brother, sold off the plot of land she tried to steal, reclaimed every title in my name. The house got repainted, the furniture rearranged. I boxed up the last traces of her perfume and jewelry and dropped them off at a storage unit I'd never revisit. Ashley was still around, still steady. She didn't fill the space Emily left. She created something new. The kids liked her, trusted her, and I let things grow slowly, without pressure, without trying to replace the past. We were just present. That was enough. A month later, I got a text from a friend who still lived near Emily's old place. "She's gone," it read. "Packed up, left town." I didn't reply. I didn't want to know where she went. I didn't care. Instead, I packed the truck and drove to Colorado with the kids and Ashley. Just us, the trees, and the sky. We hiked, we laughed. We roasted marshmallows over a fire while the stars stretched out above us like they'd been waiting all along. That night, with the kids asleep in the tent and the world finally quiet, I stepped outside and took a long breath. Cold air filled my lungs, clean air. I looked up at the night and said it to no one, and to everyone who ever doubted I'd survive this. Now it's my time, my life. Let her burn in the lies she built. I'm done carrying the ashes. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.